We're doing the bit where we're pretending we've just come on the call. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm not even going to pretend. I'm just not even going to pretend. I'm doing well, Samantha. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, good.
I hear you're run off your feet, which is excellent. This is what we're wanting to hear at this time of the year.
Yes. When COVID first hit, it went very quiet. But yeah, the last month or so, from the beginning of September, really, it suddenly got very, very busy.
And what do you think that the difference is?
I think what it is quite a few people thought they could just ride it out, wait till it was all back to normal. And they've realized that it's not going back to normal anytime soon. And they've got to get their message out there. Whether the money will come in immediately or not, they need to be remembered when the business is there.
Exactly. I mean, I think it's one of the things that I've been talking to people about more than anything else. They are asking, what should I be doing on social just now? Where do I sort of position myself? And it's the kind of, they're scared to be selling as well. It's kind of like everyone's facing sort of financial issues, and there's uncertainty, and it's that branding versus selling dynamic. If you're not branding, you're selling. If you're not selling, you're branding. And it's just trading that fine line and getting that balance right. I think, especially for, if there's businesses that are maybe not able to trade as effectively as they normally would, then it's a case of, okay, well, what can you do?
And if there is some business out there, you want obviously a bigger slice of the smaller market.
Yeah.
And even if there isn't, at some point it's going to come back, and who's going to be remembered? The people that have been consistently putting their message out there.
Yeah, exactly.
People have been quiet. Yeah.
So anyway, before we get into the thick of it, just a quick 30 seconds on who you are and what it is you do.
Okay, so I'm a marketing consultant. I specialize in technical and industrial type companies, generally B2B, because it takes a bit of a skill to take something that's a bit dry, sometimes a bit complex, and turning that into something engaging and simple.
And what's the name of your business again, Samantha?
It's Labrakita Marketing.
It's easy for you to say.
The name comes from my dog. I was looking for a unique name that would stand out. I knew marketing needed to be in there to tell people what I do.
Yeah.
But I was looking for something that really stood out. And sort of when I was going through ideas, it sort of popped into my mind one day. I have a rescue. Right. He's a Labrador Akita cross. It is not a designer mix.
Right. Okay.
He's a mutt. But yeah, it was unique. No other business is using it. So I thought, it stands out. Let's go with that.
Absolutely. And how long have you been doing this now?
I launched in July last year, July 2019.
But your background is in the same sector though, yeah?
Yeah. I was working in marketing for 15 years before I set up on my own, and I was already chartered, had all my qualifications, etc. So yeah.
So
not new.
Let's go back to the superhero origin story, Samantha. Okay, so whenever you were just a young girl and you're kind of in school and sort of dreaming of what lay ahead career wise, did you have any idea that yes, I actually want to work in marketing, I want to do a specific creative thing? Was there anything that was what was it that was getting you fired up at that stage?
At that stage, I was definitely going to be a Hollywood actress.
Okay. I can see that. You got a Kate Winslet thing kind of going on, right?
And I was doing my A-levels, and then I was trying to think what to do. It was sort of, I went to a grammar school, and it was sort of expected you would be going on to university.
Yeah.
I didn't really know what to do, but I knew my parents weren't going to let me go to drama school or pay for a performance arts degree or anything like that. So I picked ancient history and archaeology, which did not naturally lead to
a very commercial decision there. Okay.
It it was, to be honest, it sounded interesting,
Mm-hmm.
and it meant I didn't have to make a decision about what I actually was going to do for another 3 years.
Yeah.
I was starting to get a little bit more realistic. It's a field that really you have to go to PhD level to actually go into professionally.
Okay, right.
So I ended up with, going the path down any degree required type of thing. I took a temp role on at a company my dad used to work for. They knew I was looking for work and they needed someone to cover.
Okay.
And that's where marketing started. They weren't doing any really,
Right,
or doing very little.
So you were thrown in at the deep end.
Yeah, I just saw there was a gap. The actual role didn't take up much time during the day. It probably would have been part-time really, but whoever they'd employed in the past had been taking all day to do it. So I had plenty of time to start creating a digital catalogue for them, and all sorts of bits
what
and
kind of
bobs.
business was this? Sorry.
This was a B2B tech company.
Right. So it's always been, you've always been in that kind of the tech sort of side of things.
Yeah. They were technology products, sensors primarily to monitor machinery.
Right.
They specialize primarily in power stations.
Okay.
So it's turbines, and they had specialist equipment for nuclear power. So it's a bit unusual. Very
it's not
technical.
really the kind of thing you're going to get like supermodels advertising it or helping in any way.
No, definitely not.
So, but I mean, but the thing is that I always find though that whenever you're dealing with something that's a more, like you say, a drier kind of subject matter, the industry, it's like, how can we make this an interesting kind of proposition to potential customers? So what would you say, what was your sort of main thing? Was it really a process of simplification and trying to make this make sense to be, was it an internal comms thing as well, or was it broader in terms of actually sort of getting the message out?
Not this place. Everyone was very technical.
Okay.
So internally, there wasn't much required in terms of them understanding it. Externally, we're also dealing with engineers. It still needed to be a simple message.
Yeah.
But with all the technical information behind it. So there was some simplification going on, and it's talking about, and this is just throughout my career really, it's talking about the problems that are being solved for the customer. It's starting at that end, and dealing and hitting the right emotions as well. I think some people think that B2B doesn't involve emotions with marketing communications, but it really does.
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of the things, I mean, that I go on and on about is just, it's everything really, especially in the digital age, it needs to be about storytelling.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
And find the story in the human side of it, so that it's going to make sense and connect with people. And to your point about looking at it from the problem that you're going to solve. I mean, for me, that's everything in terms of the content that you're going to create. Don't be thinking, what am I going to be getting out of this? Always be thinking of what is it that's going to serve the customer best. What are they going to get out of this?
Yes.
And I think that's a huge distinction in social media that people get wrong.
Yeah, you see it all the time. Yeah. And I think another common problem is not using the customer's language.
Yes.
So many, especially technical firms, fall into using their own industry terminology, or launching straight into product codes and that kind of thing that means nothing to the customer. So I think that's really important as well. Understanding what the issues that your customers face, what problems you're actually solving, and speaking their language. And like you say, storytelling, even simple things like case studies.
Yes. Yeah. I was talking with somebody, I was doing a webinar last week, doing a couple of webinars last week, and I had always do a Q&A at the end. And one of them, there was a lady who, she was working in HR and employment law, and obviously there's a lot of restrictions with what they can actually talk about and to do with specific cases and all of that sort of things. And so she was asking really, what is it? What can I do? How can I actually do this? And the thing is that really struck me that she wasn't really grasping was all you're doing is you're thinking about what you can't do and not what you can do. And everything about it was just, the attitude was just totally, I'd say, okay, right, well, let's make this about the personalities instead rather than specific. I said, nobody wants to hear about employment law in incredible detail. Well, really? Let's make it about these people who've done this thing. And it's so that the people who are actually going to view your content, they're going to see themselves in the stories that you're telling and all that stuff.
Yes.
And so we're talking about that. And literally I was kind of met with, well, I mean, people wouldn't, want to be, on a show talking about that for the same reason, the too many restrictions. And I literally had to stop her and say, all you're doing is seeing obstacles, not opportunities. And I think that's a huge, especially, in the times that we live in, is that we're faced with so much negativity and so much potential bad that we're seeing around us, that I do think that sometimes it's really just talking to clients about seeing the possibilities rather than the problems.
Yeah, absolutely. And with case studies, sometimes it's just pick the ones where it also makes your client look good, and they're more likely to agree with you to share that information.
Yeah, well, I mean, absolutely, flattery will get you everywhere. It's kind of like, this is a bit where you guys were awesome,
Yeah.
That's always going to help. So you've worked within that sort of that tech sector. Has it always been big? Obviously, because that's sort of where you started and got your sort of grounding in marketing. Have you ever thought of going broader than that, or have you thought, no, this is a specific niche that I want to focus on?
Yeah, I mean, I was briefly agency side, and that was more B2C.
How did you find that? Was that quite a different sort of beast?
No, do you know what? No, not really. I think at the end of the day, it's the same principles.
Yeah.
There are slightly different things, like with B2B, for example, there have been some research recently where you need a 50-50 split in terms of investment in the short term and the long term type objectives. Whereas with B2C, it's a bit more slant to the long term. But I mean, and you're dealing with maybe different emotions.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's the same thing at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, I think the job's the same, but in terms of the actual day-to-day experience of working within, say, the agency structure rather than being an autonomous marketing manager within an organization, was that a different kind of thing, just in terms of being part of a specific agency structure?
Yeah, I mean, I was at that stage, I was pretty much down the bottom of the pile. So okay. I wasn't, I was dealing with all the admin, some of the promotion stuff. So I may not have seen everything.
Yeah.
I wasn't dealing with the clients directly, which I think is a different beast. If you're agency side dealing with the clients, especially in B2C, it's a bit more cutthroat, I think, maybe compared to agency side for B2B. But in terms of the underlying principles are the same. And I mean, and since I launched, the reason I went down that route, yes, it's my background. It takes a bit of a skill set to do it. Also, it means I've got less competition because there are fewer marketers that really go for that type of customer. Yeah. Having said that, I've actually ended up with all sorts of clients. Most of them are in that sector. But I mean, I had to, I've got my Chartered Institute of Marketing qualifications. I had to prove that I understood how to market to within different markets. So I did projects on charities and on B2C as well as B2B. So yeah, it's yeah, ultimately the same principles, but it's just that where you're taking something that I think a lot of tech companies overload customers with information. I
Yeah.
think that's where I really come in.
Yeah, I think that's just a general marketing problem anyway, because people who they work in their industry and they're used to
Yeah,
hearing the terminology every day, so they'll say something as a shorthand that other people are just like, what, and that can just be unbelievably off-putting, for your general consumer, or just whoever's you're trying to see that message. But what would you say has been? I mean, this is something I've been talking about with quite a few people. I mean, obviously, we're all dealing with the whole, the COVID situation. But what would you say are the sort of the main challenges that you're finding with your existing clients, and that they're maybe struggling with at this time? Is it, I think we've touched on it before. We've been speaking about that balance between branding and selling, and you know certainly at the start of lockdown, when there was all this sort of like unbelievable panic, people were terrified of putting a post on LinkedIn that was like, I'm doing this and it costs this, and there was almost this like, how dare you ask for money at this time? How have you found that with your clients?
with my existing clients carried on, to be honest.
Yeah.
I had a few leads that suddenly went very quiet, and so within my network, because I do quite a lot of networking, within networking, speaking to people, asking if they're going to come along, there are a few people that said they had a moral objection to
Yeah.
continuing doing business, which I find bizarre. We've all got to eat.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, and that really pissed me off, because there was a lot of people kind of like, it's like, how dare you? I'm like, hold on, I'm self-employed. I'm not on furlough. I don't have money
Yeah.
coming in from somewhere else unless I actually work. So shut the hell up. There was an awful lot of people who were in their cushy little corporate job that were just put on furlough. Oh, we're just sitting at home. It's all really relaxing time, isn't it? No, it's not. So I just think there was an awful lot of a whole bunch of self-employed people went, what? And so I think there was that strange period, that dynamic where like you say, it was kind of, you're faced with this kind of morality kind of dilemma. It's like, really? You have a problem with me trying to feed my family?
Yeah. And even amazingly, some self-employed people that I was speaking to, who they felt it would be immoral for them to try and sell.
Mm-hmm.
What are you,
Yeah,
how are you going to eat? How are you going to
exactly.
put a roof over your head? I
But I
don't
think
understand.
I think that's the really interesting thing, though. It's just from a marketing point of view, is it's that subtlety. It's just like, okay, there's going to be, and it's just going to be maybe a short passage of time, but there's going to be that subtle change where, okay, yeah, it's all right to maybe kind of go a wee bit more salesy now, but maybe just making that subtle change in the content that you're sharing being seen to be obviously valuable to and helpful to people at
Yeah.
the time, rather than, and by the way, this is only 17.99. It's kind of like, no, we're actually here to help you.
Yeah, absolutely. And people who weren't continuing to just doing the networking, just keep in contact with people, just continuing writing blogs, continuing to put social media content out there that's just reminding people that you exist. People were even stopping doing that, and it's.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people suddenly realised that was a mistake.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, one of the main things that I think we've all kind of had to do is, making, well, I mean, it's all just been a period of adjustment. And one of the main things that I've been doing is, the businesses that I've been working with are having to make that shift from real world work situations, and then being able to, how can we do this and operate in some kind of online capacity? If we can't all
Yeah,
be in the room together, how can we actually go about doing this? And I mean, it's obviously, it's an extremely challenging time for so many businesses, but it's this constant reevaluating where we're at and can we do this in an online capacity, you know?
Yes. Yeah, most of my clients don't have that. Well, one of my new clients, he'd already done that. He'd realized that he needed to, and that's why he's ready to really go for it now. He had to turn all his content to online content and provide his service online. But most of my clients didn't have that issue because they're either tech companies that are used to that kind of situation anyway. Quite a few IT companies I was dealing with. Their main problem was they were overloaded with work all of a sudden because they're helping people work from home who weren't set up for it.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's and it didn't. I already had clients that I'd never even met in person. So in terms of how I work, it didn't. What it did do though was open up international markets. I can network anywhere now. I took on my first international client a couple of months ago, and we can all work from anywhere. So that there are positives as well as negatives to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think going back to the obstacles versus opportunities thing, I mean, I think for me more than anything else, it's like, okay, you know, I don't have to be doing a networking thing in Glasgow or even Scotland, you know. It's like let's just, you know, if it's English speaking, because my other languages are not great, then we're fine, you know. But so I mean, it's just been such a strange, and I don't know how many times I've said this, you know, but every day we still kind of go, really? I wasn't expecting the words global pandemic to be, you know, used on such a regular basis this year, you know, very, very strange. So when you first ventured out on your own, did you have a plan of you know where you wanted to go, or was it just an instinctive thing that you just were like, I'm going to do this on my own. I want to do my own thing?
Yeah, well, it had been a plan for a long time, but the moment hadn't been right. I moved to Scotland from Bedfordshire. I'd left my previous job, but initially I took on a job up here because I had thought about, is that the right time to launch a new business? But of course I was porting a mortgage, and if you're self-employed, they like to see a few years worth of accounts rather than nothing. I just planned to start one. So decided that wasn't an option, but the job didn't work out at all. Long story short, just really did not get on with the directors.
I'm sure there's a really juicy story there you're not telling me about.
It's a very long story. And I'd been at my previous company for 10 years and was expecting to be there for at least 3 years. But after 3 months, I had to quit for my own sanity. And having moved already, the house down south had been sold. We were in our new home. We had quite a bit of money left over because it's big difference in house prices.
Yeah, sure.
So
you built a pool.
Yeah, so I had something to invest, and I thought, yeah, maybe this is a sign. And I did sit down and figure out what my plan is, and I have my big 15-year plan. Whether that will actually come off or not, I don't know, but I will do my damnedest. It's basically my retirement plan. And yeah, I want to build this up into a really great business.
So, and are you building it in the sense that you're not just doing this necessarily just for yourself? You're building it as an agency on its own, right?
That's the plan. Yes, I'm already starting to outsource work that I would normally do myself because I've got too much on. And that's probably the way I will grow. I'll start outsourcing, and once I've got enough being outsourced, that's a job role, and gradually build it up like that. That's my plan.
This is a sort of two-sided question, I suppose. What's your favorite thing to do as part of your job? and your least favorite. So what's the thing that you're happy to outsource because you hate doing it, and then the bit that, you know, like I quite like doing that, but I don't want to necessarily ask somebody else to do that. I'd quite like to keep doing that.
I discovered that I used to hate networking. I discovered
Mm-hmm.
I really like networking, meeting people, doing all of that side of things. I still enjoy the strategy side.
Mm-hmm.
I can do a lot of copywriting, but I'm definitely going to outsource more of that because it's a bit of a, it's not the most exciting thing in the world.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm already working with a copywriter who's really also really good in that, and his background's similar.
The
He's
tech
very
background,
used
right?
to writing for tech. Yeah. So he can do what I can do with the copy. I already have to work with graphic designers anyway because I'm not a graphic designer. I know you need a professional to do I can do the very basic stuff, really basic stuff. But
Yeah.
other than that, I use graphic designers, web developers. I don't try and do that myself.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it's strategy, planning, and so I'll probably, once I've built the business up, still do a bit of that, the consultancy stuff. And you're just running a business. It might sound a bit sad, but all the planning for my own business, not just marketing planning, but all of that stuff, and having this vision, and it's I find that really
Absolutely. I mean,
exciting.
and it's you're still, early in the process, and it's just the excitement of I'm just getting started doing this, and you've got that, like you said, that vision of where you want it to go. Are you going to drop any hints of, let's try and imagine a world without COVID, and pandemics aside, right? Where would you like to see your business in, say, 5 years' time then?
Yeah, in 5 years' time, I'd like to have office space, not necessarily enough office space for everyone to be there all the time, because that's probably not going to be a thing anymore.
Yeah.
I
suppose meeting space for clients. It's having
yes,
that.
yes. A space where I can have video calls without a bedroom in the background.
Quite.
Maybe a nice branded wall.
I mean, it's funny. I mean, because I'm working from home at the moment. I'm literally in the study, which is a bomb site at the moment. But I really would normally want to do this, these kind of things in my studio, because then it's kind of like, oh, this is like where I work. This is what I do. But it's the Zoom bookcase in the background, or like you say, cupboards and whatever. Crazy.
Yeah, I've tried it. I've got a what I call a library. It's a converted garage.
Yes.
But which is great for the background, but terrible lighting in there, so it really doesn't work for Zoom calls.
Anyway, sorry, I interrupted you. Yeah. So 5 years' time.
5 years' time, yes. So yeah, office. At least 5 years' time. So at least minimum 5 employees. I still envision targeting that same market, probably.
Okay.
Maybe broaden out to B2B in general.
Okay.
And be very much a national/international company, not just Scotland.
Yeah.
Most of my clients are still in Scotland. But yeah, definitely need to broaden out. So I also possibly envision having account managers maybe dotted about the country.
Yeah.
Be nice.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's always really helpful, especially at this time, to drop a little bit of advice for other businesses who maybe listening or watching this. What would be a couple of tips that you would give to businesses that are maybe struggling for marketing ideas at the moment, or just what's sort of best practice just now for you?
Number one, stay visible. Make sure that your brand is out there, if nothing else. So blogging, if you probably have lots of, you're the best at what you do, you've got lots of information up here, get it out there on blogs. There are still, although there aren't many physical conferences for obvious reasons, conferences are still going on. Get those speaker spots, make sure you're positioned as the expert. I think that's really important. And once you start doing these things, stay consistent. If you're posting on social media, make sure you keep doing it. You're blogging, keep doing it. And yeah, if you need help with content, I would get out there. And marketing communication is very much an investment. Yes. So if you are in a position to invest and get professionals to help you, do so. There's so many great professionals out there, branding people, graphic designers, web developers, etc. Get the right people to help you, or indeed a marketing consultant like myself. Yeah. It really is an investment, and for most people it's not their day job. Yeah. And it's therefore quite hard. If you don't have the cash to invest, just make sure that you set, even if it's just 1 hour a week aside, to get your post scheduled, even if it's a short blog, once a month, just something, to get something out there. I think that's what it is. It's at the moment, it is just making sure that you're visible, and for some markets, understand where your market is at this point in time as well, because some markets are still out there and are still selling and do need help. Yeah. And if that's part of your market, even if it doesn't represent your whole market, go for those customers. Really send messages out that hit that particular audience. Target them with advertising if you can afford to. Yeah. It really will make a difference.
So Samantha, if people actually want to find out more about what it is that you do, where can they find you online?
It's my website is www.labrakita.co.uk. Labrakita is LABRAKITA.
Amazing. Yes, you remembered how to spell your business. Good.
And if you search Samantha Tonge Marketing on Google, you'll find all my social media accounts as well. Don't just search for Samantha Tonge, because there's a best-selling author with the same name. And right, okay. One of the reasons I didn't go with Samantha Tonge Marketing.
I see. That could get confusing.
Yes.
Well, I'll make sure we add all the links in the show notes for today's episode. Anyway, Samantha, thank you so much for joining me today. This is, for the folks at home, this is the second time we've tried to do this. We had a Zoom catastrophe the last time, but I think we've managed to get through it this time. Anyway, yes. Thank you very much, Deed, and I'll talk to you soon.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
See you later.